there's so much more into photographing the stars than I ever would have thought of, and hopefully I don't bore you guys and bring in some ideas, so if you decide to go out and get to a dark location, you kind of have an idea of what to do. I do like the remote rugged beauty. Not everybody likes going out in the middle of the night and by yourself. I've heard some rustling in the branches that makes me a little worried, especially in bear country. I just was in Australia, and I was just, I'm not used to kangaroos, never saw one wild in my life, and I was waking up in a tent in this Mungo National Park and surrounded by kangaroos, and that was just, I didn't want anything to do with that. I can handle a bear. It was kangaroos that just were staring at me as I was trying to open my tent. So anyway, and I do like that we can capture a moment. Anytime you're photographing the stars, there's something going on out there that we may not capture. NASA might get it, but there's just something going on. You're capturing a moment in time that is recorded somewhere by NASA. So I enjoy that portion as well. All right. Some essential gear. I know we're all photographers here. I thought I was a photographer when I started, and there's some things I just didn't realize I could benefit from. Full frame cameras are preferred, but you don't have to have a full frame camera. But a manual mode is a must. If you can't control the camera, it's going to confuse the heck out of the little sensors in it, and you'll never be able to capture the stars like you may envision yourself trying to capture them if you don't have a manual mode to kind of just take over and control that camera. You'll want a wide angle lens. I'd say 12-24, but with a tracker, you can shoot 35 and 50 millimeters and capture some real intimate scenes of those nebulas and galaxies in the Milky Way with a tracker. Otherwise, if you don't have the tracker and you go on 35, 50, your shutter speed, and I'll get to that in a second, but your shutter speed is going to be so fast that it's going to be very difficult to capture the stars, or you'll be so noisy from turning your ISO up so high that it's not the kind of image that you're wanting. But if you do have a tracker, it's fun to throw on a longer focal length. Tripods. Obviously we need them because there's a lot going on in the sky that any type of movement in your camera is going to make it difficult. Another thing about the tripod is if you've got one of the little tripod hammocks or the hook that you can hang a camera bag from, just to make it real sturdy. Wind or other elements can cause any bit of shake, and in a 15-20 second exposure, that shake will blur out your stars. So you want it to be, a real sturdy tripod. Again, trackers, it's not a must. I didn't have a tracker for, I think, first 5 or 6 years that I was doing this before I started seeing other people's, and I'm like, how's he getting so much detail in these photos? And find out that it was a tracker, and so started looking into shooting with a tracker, and now I shoot a lot with a tracker. And then we also want, if you don't have a built-in camera, I do shoot Sony, so I know we got some Sony guys in here. Yeah, they're doing it right. I'll just say that. But anyway, the newer Sonys have built-in intervalometers with bulb mode. They've got bulb timers, and so you don't have to have an external remote like we used to have. But you'll want some way of controlling your camera if you go longer than the typical 30 seconds that most cameras are built in for shutter speed. So especially if you use a tracker, because nice trackers you can get up to 5, 6, 7 minutes of exposure at real low ISO, and the only way to do that is to have something that controls that bulb move. Apps and planning tools. These are in some instance a must. I use Planet Pro. Has anyone heard Planet Pro before? No? Yeah. That's 2 screenshots from Planet Pro from my trip to Australia just recently. What you can do with that is it's got everything from future planning. So if you know you're going to a certain location next year, you can put yourself in that location, like it shows on I got my laser here. That's a little Google. Is that too bright? This is Dale. I asked if he had a pointer, and he's giving me something that we can shoot with. But anyway, you can put a location in there. You can search. You can put a location, and you can actually place your camera in the location that you plan on shooting, and then you can place your scene. So if you know you're going to be sitting in front of a certain tree or a certain mountain, in that case it's a lake, you can place those two objects, put your time in there, and it's going to give you the time frame, and it's going to show an actual VR of what the Milky Way will look like that particular day, that particular time, at that particular location. It'll also tell you if they're dark sky locations, so you can put the pin in there and put your camera, and then go up to tools, go to dark sky, and it's going to tell you what the Bortle scale is for that location. So you know, well, I can definitely get the stars there. Or no, it's not going to work there, so I'll have to plan another trip. But you can go in advance and shoot, and then on the bottom here, which shows the date and time, you can scroll and it'll actually show the Milky Way moving, and it'll show you where in the sky it'll be at that particular time. So if you have something envisioned that you want to shoot, you want the Milky Way in a particular location, you can say, okay, I got to be there at 12:30 in the morning if I want the Milky Way at that location. So, and then of course you can screenshot it and save it, or plan future trips and keep them saved as plans. The next one's photo pills. It does something similar. I don't think it's as user friendly. I use photo pills because they're virtual reality Milky Way. It's really cool. So you can go in there and open it up, and it uses your location from your phone's GPS and camera, and it'll show you where the Milky Way is by just holding your phone up to whatever you're going to be shooting. And you can scroll with your finger back and forth to see where the Milky Way is. So if you know if you're there during the day scouting, and you're like, oh, I wonder if I can shoot the stars here, you can pull that one out and open it up, and you can say, okay, oh yeah, I can shoot the stars here. I got to be back at such and such time, or I can't, and I need to move to a different location. Obviously, weather apps for us here in Houston. There's no use in driving 4 hours to find some dark skies just to get there and find out it's been raining and cloudy and you can't see the stars. So it's great to look at all the weather apps. I probably have 7 on my phone because I don't trust just one. So I want to go through all of them and then take an average. Stellarium, if you want some previews of what different stars and constellations, which are the realities now, but it's nice to kind of be like, hey, I want to shoot. When I lived in Florida, I would do all the time. I'd look up and down the coast to see if there was something I hadn't seen yet, a patch of palm trees or a dock or something, and I'd play on Google Earth and just try and find locations that would be close to home that I could go and photograph without driving forever or getting there and realizing if there's a gate or that those trees aren't there because the hurricane knocked them out or whatever. But those are some of the apps that I use for planning any of my trips. And Daryl's asked me about Moab. I've already been in there trying to look at where the sky is on those dates, and just kind of gets you excited about your trip, but gets you understanding where the Milky Way is or what it's even possible. I wish I had this when I first started, because I honestly went out and would just stick my camera on a tripod and just be like, oh, that's got to be it right there, and get all disappointed because I wasn't captured or anything. Couldn't find out in November you can't see the core. So these are great tools for planning. Field techniques, you want to manually focus with your live view zoom. Don't trust your lenses infinity. A lot of lenses that can be off. It's better to actually bring in the stars, zoom in if you can, like on Sony's or Sony Shure, you can zoom in quite nicely, and then you can focus onto that star before shooting. And then after you've done that, always take a test shot and just take that exposure and then go to preview and enlarge it and see if those stars are sharp. It's the best way of avoiding taking a lot of photos and then getting home and being, why are these all blurred? And realizing that your camera wasn't in focus that whole time you were out shooting the stars. Anyone heard of the 300 to 500 rule for exposures? No? Is that a no you have? Or
I don't like those rules.
Yeah,
The new NPF rule, which I think is in Photo Tools and other apps,
Yes.
is more accurate.
it is. If you do have those apps, they do have tools in there for your specific camera and camera lenses. But if you don't have those apps, you just want to get an idea because of course the Earth's moving, and if you're trying to shoot stars and you have a certain focal length and a certain time in mind, those stars may not be sharp because there's going to be movement in between that focal or that exposure time. So if you take your focal length and divide it by 300 or 500, it's going to give you an average time that you can expose for the stars. I would say if you don't have the apps to practice and play with it, with particular lenses that you want to use, and see where your stars are going to be sharp and they're not starting to blur or trail on you, and then kind of use that as your guide going forward. If you have the app, you can put in your actual camera lenses, and it's going to give you a better option for those lenses in that focal length. Your ISOs, there are native ISOs, but typically, 1600 to 6400. Now 1600 is going to be quite low. That's what I use, or even lower on some of my trackers. I won't go above that. 6400's a good starting point. But again, all our cameras are different, so just practice when you're taking some shots and see where your ISO is. Obviously, you don't want it to be too noisy by going 10,000, 12,000, or even more, but you do want to keep it as low as possible so that you don't blow out your scene, but you don't have so much noise that your photo just looks grainy. Obviously, we want to shoot during the new moon or after the moon is set on that particular day, or before it rises. The moon's going to ruin every chance you get of shooting stars. And then, of course, you can capture multiple exposures for focus stacking. I'll get that in a second. So I do a lot of focus stacking, so that threw me off for a second. But yeah, you want to capture multiple exposures for focus stacking, sky stacking. So if you can shoot multiple exposures of the sky, and then stack those in different programs for noise elimination, and then of course a tracker for even longer exposures. Those all benefit you. Software. These are some of the software that I use for the photos I'll discuss here in a little bit. I bring everything to Lightroom initially for global adjustments, white balances, and colors. I use Helicon Focus, which I see on the Facebook a lot of people are doing macro. Helicon Focus really started with the macro shooters as a way of stacking deep stacks, but it works great for landscape shooting as well. PT GUI is a great panorama stitching program. So if you have large panoramas that you've shot and you want to bring them all in together and not use Lightroom or Photoshop, or if Lightroom and Photoshop are having a hard time putting those together, PT GUI is a great one. And of course, Photoshop, I do most everything after I've stacked it or I've merged everything. I use Photoshop for most everything. Sequator, if you're Windows, or Starry Landscape Stacker for Mac, are a way of taking all those multiple exposures of the sky and stacking them into one image for eliminating noise. And then anyone who shoots deep space stuff has probably heard of RC Astro, but they have Star Eliminator and Noise Eliminator, and those are just ways of cleaning up an image and editing the Milky Way in a way that you're not distorting the whole image by removing the stars and just doing the gas clouds and the nebulas, and then bringing the stars back. And then Noise Eliminator is just a way of really eliminating noise in your image to make it cleaner. All right, so I'm going to just go over some of my photos here with you guys. This was back in 2000, I think it was 16. I had just left the Florida Highway Patrol. That's where I started my law enforcement career. And I moved over to the federal government. But they all knew I was out driving around in the middle of the night taking photos of stars. And one of the troopers said, "Hey, it'd be cool if we did a car with the stars, and I'm like, heck, let's do it. So we met up on this bridge in North Florida, and it's a single image. There's no stacking. I tried to find, I couldn't remember, it was probably an old Rokinon lens that I purchased for the night sky, but it was a 14 millimeter lens. I illuminated the car with my phone because I just wasn't getting enough light. It's quite dark out there. There's no street lights in that part of Redneckville. I can tell you stories, won't get those, but that part of Florida really has the Florida man. But anyway, so I used my phone to highlight the car, and we went through multiple because I either had too little light or too much light. Then we finally got to one that kind of made the car stand out well, and the reflective stickers kind of popped. So that was 14 millimeter ISO 8000 for 15 seconds. And that was kind of when I first started getting more and more serious into the stars. I didn't want to bring and share my original ones because you'd probably laugh at me because there really weren't good stars in those. But so anyway, that was one of my first real images. And then the Florida Highway Patrol actually pulled a Darryl and stole it and made blankets, and they sell it at their FHP store at the Academy. So without my name on it because they took my watermark off. But anyway, I don't mind. Next one. All right. If you guys remember Hurricane Michael, it went through, I think, 2018. It devastated North Florida. Shortly after the hurricane, old Donna Kay here was washed up on shore. They couldn't get rid of it, and it just sat there near an Air Force base for quite a while, and gave us a great opportunity to go out there and photograph the stars with the Donna Kay. It's now been chopped up and it's gone. They brought some salvage crews in, they chopped the darn thing up and it's gone. But the light behind the shrimp boat is actually another shrimp boat. So I had to walk around and try and get the Milky Way lined up without getting the shrimp boat's lights, because they will go back and forth as they're out there shrimping. So this is another single exposure. No light painting on this one. There's a lighthouse about a half mile away that actually helped illuminate as it go around. It would light up the sky a little bit. So we were trying to pull some light from that. But this was a 20 millimeter, probably another Rokinon lens that I had. It's a 1.8, but it's ISO 8000 for 13 seconds. And so that's the Donna Kay.
Something like that. Are you playing around? Like, how long are you there?
Oh man, hours.
And you're testing all sorts of different exposures and ISOs
Yes.
and all that.
Yes.
Walking home with that in your pocket.
Now I've gotten to where I'm a little bit more proficient. When I get somewhere, I'm kind of understanding what I want. I have a vision in my mind, and so I get to shooting. Here I was still, I think Hurricane Michael was I think it was 2018. So I was still kind of new, and I was with another group, some friends. We're all photographers. We just decided to go out there. We got an Airbnb down the beach from it, so we didn't have to drive all the way back home. And we hiked about 3/4 of a mile because the Air Force doesn't let you park on their property. So we had to park outside the Air Force Base property and then hike down the beach to it, which had been destroyed. The beach was covered, and I've got some shots of beached palm trees and eroded sand because the hurricane just tore it all up. But all of a sudden you get there and there's this gigantic shrimp boat that's just sitting there. So, but yes, just walking around and just playing with different exposures and trying different things. And I've got quite a few from different angles as the Milky Way moved. It gave me different angles to shoot the shrimp boat.
You're on site. Like, I've always struggled with the night photography to know if I've got the shot when I'm looking at a stupid little 3-inch screen.
Yeah.
Are you looking at a 3-inch screen and saying, we're good, or are you taking bigger monitors?
Nope, using a 3-inch screen or looking in the eyepiece. I started realizing I need glasses now because things are blurry, and I'm like, it can't be blurry. It's got to be pin sharp, so I do carry readers now. Don't tell my wife because she'll make fun of me. So anyway, that was another single exposure that I've done. Next. All right, as being a veteran, I got some pretty cool opportunities. This was in Utah, Dugway Proving Ground. They used to have Ranger School out there, so that's why I was familiar with it. But now it's just a training facility for the Utah National Guard, which I have a cousin who is a colonel over the Field Artillery Brigade. And I said, you know, it'd be kind of cool to try and shoot these. They're artillery. I think they're called Paladins. They're motorized artillery pieces. Shoot the big 105 millimeter rounds. So we drove out there and waited for dark. As they set up, they gave me a radio and said, hey, you're in charge of telling us when to fire. So I set my camera, put my phones on, and just played around some different exposures. And so the foreground is a single exposure at 24 millimeter ISO 5000, f2.8 for 53 seconds. So because they don't all shoot at the same time. They'll shoot one gun and then another one go off. So I wasn't sure. So I just put it on bulb mode and I was just holding that remote, just waiting for it. So when the 6 guns there, once the last one off, I went ahead and closed the shutter. So that's where, if you see on the first gun on the left here, you can see the barrel actually moved. So you can see the round coming out. After it fired, it lowered it down because it shot another volley later on, which I wasn't prepared for and scared the daylights out of me. So I'm actually pretty close, and they're loud. I was an infantry guy, so I didn't hang around in the big loud things very often. And then I stay out there and I stack this guy. So when I was talking about earlier, I shot 13 single exposures back to back, and then I put them in that program Story Landscape Stacker and then merged them into one and helped remove some of the noise that I otherwise, because you can see there's dust. Those things kick up dust, and there was smoke from the guns, and then they're running off of diesel power. So there's diesel fumes and smoke and dust in the air from it kicked up. So that helped kind of eliminate all that dust. And then of course I merged those 2 exposures into one final image.
Every single exposure is 13 seconds.
I'm sorry?
Every single exposure is 13 seconds.
Yes, so each one is 24 millimeter 5000 for 13 seconds. And I just did one back to back, did 13 of them, and then took those 13 and put them into the program and got one TIFF file up here for the sky. And then merged it with my long exposure for the gun shooting. That was a lot of fun. This one here is Big Bend. It's one of my favorite places to go during the spring wildflowers is those. If anyone's been during the cactus bloom, it's pretty spectacular. There's so many pinks and yellows and reds going on. So this one I started practicing with focus stacking, because people would ask me, well, how do you get everything in focus? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Because I was just doing single exposures and just trying to get to where my focal length was enough to try and keep everything in focus. So here I actually sat, I have a little 3-legged stool, and I sat down and I shot a focus cycle. So it's 11 exposures at 24 millimeter, ISO 1000, and each one was 135 seconds. So I would do one, and then I would turn the focus ring manually, and I would do another one. And I just sat there listening to animals in the dark roam around me as I shot those 11 exposures. And then I would bring those in and Helicon focus, and I would stack them to get one image that was everything in my foreground was in focus. And then I carry 2 tripods. With the track sky, so I have my smaller one that I get down low, and then I bring my bigger tripod and I put the tracker on that one, and I'll shoot the sky right after or before, depending on my mood. But I'll shoot the sky where I'm sitting as well, so the sky is being taken at the same spot as my foreground. So this one, if you guys have been out, this is on brain fart. The road heading towards St. Helena Canyon, and Mule Ears is off to the left. So Mule Ears is behind that little mountain peak off to the right. And the white light is actually a car. It picked up a car in one of my exposures. It just kind of looked kind of cool. So there was a car driving down as I was hiding in the bushes, taking this focus stack. And then of course, I took the 2 images and merged my track sky, which was 183 seconds at ISO 640. And that's where I got all the extra nebulas and gas clouds and a cleaner image, because that tracker really absorbs that light without creating so much noise that it grains of the sky.
So your focus stack did not include the sky, right?
It did not.
included just
It did not.
the
So
the mountains.
So I did the focus stack of just the foreground, and then I typically raise my tripod, or I just bring that second one, and I shoot the sky a little bit higher, so that it gives me some more room to merge the two, just in case I get something in the way. Because the focus stack, if you shoot the sky at the same angle, it's hard to try and blend those. It's getting easier with more AI in some of our software, but like that cactus, that little cholla off to the right, that will be blurred in a track sky. So the sky's tacked, but everything in your foreground is gonna be blurry, and so you'll have your foreground and your track sky will be all blurry. It's hard to try and blend those two together, so I bring it up higher to get more sky and less foreground, so I can put the sky in there without trying to mask out all this extra blurriness. Sir?
First, bravo. Second, are you scouting your shot? Like, this is a great shot with those flowers. Did you scout that in the daylight?
I did.
Come back?
I did.
Yeah.
So I'll drive out during the day and just look for stuff. I've got Big Bend, I know where the Milky Way is gonna be most times of the year that I've gone. I just drive around and I just saw this, I thought there's so much different vegetation there, not just cactus. There's just so much difference that I thought this would be a great place. And I just use my Garmin and I'll mark it and then drive back at night to shoot it.
Michael, you just using a basic camera type tripod, or are you getting into any of the astronomical ones?
No, it's just a basic camera tripod. I've got a smaller, I shoot with really right stuff, so I've got a smaller travel tripod that has a removable column that I can take out if I need to, so I get real low, or I can bring it up a little bit higher. And then I have a bigger, heavier tripod that goes up, I think, 6.5 feet. That's what I use on my truck, because it's real heavy, you can get out wide and sturdy. Any other questions? This one's Big Bend. It's Balanced Rock. Have anyone been to Balanced Rock? Yeah, it's a great little hike, great little location. The nice thing is if you go at night, you probably aren't going to see anybody. You might see eyes because there are deer along the trail. That'll spook you for a second. But I've got stories about seeing stuff out there that. Anyway, go with friends. It's easier on your brain. Anyhow, the foreground is another focus stack, and so what I wanted to try and do something different. If you see a lot of the photos of Big Bend in particular, or locations in general, you'll see that a lot of people take the same kind of photo, and I just wanted something a little bit different, maybe show that rock being balanced in a different aspect than normal. So I thought, well, let me get down low, and so this one's kind of hard on this with the monitor, but you can see the grains in that rock. So this is a great opportunity to do another focus stack. It's 9 exposures, 24 millimeters again. And this was a blue hour shot. So this is right before the sun rose, which is another, if you go out there, it's a great sunrise location.
So are you manually determining how many shots to focus stack, or are you letting the camera do
I am.
it?
On this one, I'm doing it.
Okay.
I've gotten my new Sony, it has focus bracketing in it, and I usually let it just do it.
Okay.
And I don't judge it. It's been pretty good. But unless you shoot really late at night, and it's even more difficult, the camera won't be able to focus bracket.
Right.
So you have to manually do it.
So can you talk for just a second about, or at some point,
Yeah.
it's like, how did you decide 9 shots versus 20 shots, or
So
versus
I
2
usually start
shots?
the closest object to my focal max or minimum focal distance to my lens, and that's where. So I got the camera low enough to where this particular portion of the rock was in focus, and then I just turned after that 20 seconds. I just turned the focus ring, and I knew I was close enough. So I was doing. I think I was like, I'm just going to make up these numbers because I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like 1 meter, and then I did 2 meters, 3 meters, and then I jumped out to 4 meters. So I was getting to where I was shooting things that were farther away from the camera. And then as I do that, the camera's going to start telling you, at least mine does, it's not going to be like 1, 2, 3, and it's going to go up to infinity. It's going to be like 1, 2, 11, 14, 22, and then it'll show infinity. So I was doing 1, 2, 3, and then it jumped to like 4 or 5. So 9, the camera was somewhat telling me where we were at. And don't ask me how it does that. He'll be the guy to tell you how to do that. I just trust him. There's something in there that's letting me know that there was a particular focus that I was getting to infinity at that point. So it was 9 on this one. And then again, I tracked the sky. It's a single exposure track sky for 321 seconds at ISO 640 at 3.5. So it's I really enjoyed tracking the sky because you just get so much more detail. And now I've got we'll get to some of our photos. I've got a second body that I've had Astro modified. You really start seeing more nebulas and stuff with that tracker on it. So it's pretty darn cool. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know a whole lot about photography, so everybody might have
On for telescopes that are thousands of dollars and can really be used, because the deeper you get into space, the more accurate they need to be. Wide angle astrophotography, you want to polar align it, but you don't have to be just dead spot on with Polaris like you do for deep space stuff. So anyway, if you're doing a tracker, if you're going to start doing anything over 70 millimeters, you really want to start to get polar aligned tack on, otherwise it's going to start blurring on you because it's trying to get into the deep space stuff. So, any other questions?
Yeah, good question. Okay, on your last image, you were talking about how you raise the camera so that you can get the foreground, kind of out of your image so it's not blurring together with everything. What'd you do on this one?
I stood on the rock there to my right. Oh. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's as you walk in, you can walk through it, but there's that big rock that kind of has a little, I just climbed up on top of that.
Okay.
So the cameras aren't lined up. I mean, the Milky Way's lined up like it should, but they weren't right on top of each other like I could with the cactuses.
Gotcha.
So I just climbed up on that rock and shot the tractors guy. Yeah, so I'm right below the rock. If you walk around it, you can get up on top of those 2 rocks there and shoot the sky without anything in your way. So.
Very treacherous footing at night.
Oh, that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Nothing like calling for help in the middle of Big Bend. There is cell phone service there, so I can say that much. Any other questions? All right, great. This one was outside Fredericksburg. I just had a wild hair one weekend, and I decided to just drive out and start looking for bluebonnets. And I drove out, I stayed the night, so it was before sunset. I just started scouting and ran into another photographer that I know who runs workshops, and I said, hey, where's some good patches of bluebonnets? And he's like, well, you don't tell anybody, it's down this road. So I drove down, and if you look, you can see a fence. I'm actually, the edge of the road is right behind me, because I don't want to play with rattlesnakes, especially in the dark. So I stayed on the road, and that and private property in Texas. Those two things may not mix. So if you look, you can see the fence. There's a fence back there behind the grass. So I'm actually, with my little 3-legged stool, sitting in the road with my camera real low to shoot the bluebonnets and the paintbrush. And then I just did the same thing. I just raised my tripod up and shot the stars right there off the sunrise. And this was a blue hour, so it was right before sunrise. So I went out and scouted, ran into Jason, and he told me, hey, there's some great fields down this road. So I went, and I was like, oh, these are great fields. So I came back the next morning before sunrise and did my blue hour and my Milky Way shooting. So it's another focus stack. This one's a deeper, so it's 13 exposures, and I had my newer camera at the time, so I was focus bracketing and just letting the camera just do it. And so all those exposures was determined by the camera. And there are 1 second exposures, which helped with blur. I mean, if any type of wind with flowers, and I love shooting flowers, but if you're doing any long exposure with vegetation like that, any little bit of wind is going to start blurring. And if you focus stack, you might have minimal movement, but some of these leaves will start to move, and you'll see that as you've stacked it, they'll be blurring because the program's trying to stack those photos, but there's been movement in the flowers or the leaves. And so you have to be patient. I shoot a lot of the focus. I just take multiple. That way, if I get back home and one of my stacks has movement, hopefully my second one doesn't. And then I always end up with a decent stack. And this is one of my decent stacks. And then of course the track sky. This sky isn't as pronounced because there's a lot of light pollution. Still not far from, I don't remember where outside of Fredericksburg I was at the time, to be honest, but there was still some light pollution in the sky. So my Milky Way isn't as pronounced as it would be if you were in a real dark location, like Big Bend or some other places in the world.
Play around with light pollution filters or anything like that for some of these?
I have in the past. I didn't find that they were, in my opinion, that they were beneficial.
Yeah.
Especially when you start doing the tracker, it's better just to try and find a location that doesn't have. And I have fibbed. When we did the sunflowers, was that June, May? We did the field trip with the sunflowers.
Yeah, June.
I posted a shot that I did there, but that was a true concept. I did the Milky Way. There was too much light pollution from that gas station. So I shot the sunflowers at Blue Hour, and then I drove about an hour to get out of town and shot the sky there, and then just blended them into one. Now, I posted that one on the Facebook page. That was a composite because the Milky Way was taken at a completely different location. Any other questions?
Is that light painted?
No, it isn't. That's just Blue Hour. So, this is up above Animas Forks in Colorado. If anyone's been in the San Juan Mountains, I grew up not far from there. So, as a kid, my dad tried killing his boys by driving his Jeep up in the mountains. And they're old mining trails that are now, it's a big mecca for off-road vehicles. And you can climb over dirt roads that go up to 13,000 feet over some of these mountains where the old miners would hunt for the metals. But anyway, there's this old truck frame just sitting in a little roundabout. People have started fires near it. And anyway, so I got up there, this is last summer. There were some flowers growing around it, and be a great shot to experiment with Milky Way. So foreground is a focus stack at 48 millimeters, 3 exposures. It is a Blue Hour shot as well with a half second exposure time. And then my track sky at 330 seconds, 24 millimeters at ISO 400 at 3.5. And again, just blended them in Lightroom and then blended all the exposures back in Photoshop. So, really neat location. This is Colorado as well. Now this mountain, I threw this one in here. So I went and told you about the story about seeing the Milky Way above that particular mountain. It just happened to be Mount Sniffles there. I grew up about 30 minutes to the north of this particular location. So when I get out there, I try and go out and shoot up Mount Sniffles. It's a 14,000 foot peak, so it's just kind of an iconic peak that just sticks up there in the San Juan Mountains. But last summer out scouting, I did a workshop. It's a July workshop for wildflowers in the alpine mountains and meadows. And there's an old beaver pond, so I went to see if there was any reflections of the mountain that I could possibly get with Milky Way. And the beaver pond kind of dried up over the summer, but found these daisies. And as I was scouting around, I was like, man, that would be a great shot as it leads towards the mountain. And so went back later, actually camped not too far from there. If the camera was at full height, you'd probably be able to see my vehicle. It's not too far away. But it's 24 exposures. And on a real good resolution screen, you can see there's a lot of detail in those flowers, which is really, I enjoy that focus. You can, once you get that focus of that first flower, it really just brings in all the depth of all those flowers. So it's a focus stack of 24 exposures, 35 millimeters. And I did 35 so that I could try and get the mountains to be more pronounced with that long line leading line of flowers.
How many sequences? So that's an amazing stack. How many sequences would you shoot on a setting like this, hoping that you get a good sequence?
I sat there, it was Blue Hour. I probably sat there a good hour. There was wind, and so I would take it and I'd cuss because I could see the movement. And then I'd wait for a second and I'd hit that shutter button again and let it run. And I took quite a few to where it got too dark to shoot focus stacks like that.
So when you take these into Helicon Focus,
Yes,
to stack these, do you remove the sky before you do that?
I don't.
Oh, because it's blue hour and the sky's white anyway or whatever,
Yeah.
so it's not, you're not.
It'll stack it, but they'll just be,
Yeah, okay.
they'll just be all blurred. They'll either be blurred or you'll see the trails and the movement and the time frame of those different exposures.
So then you bring it into Photoshop, get rid of the sky, bring me here.
Yep, so I'll mask it out.
Yeah.
And then clean up my mask and then bring my sky into it after that. And then of course another tracked single exposure sky at 34 millimeters for 330 seconds. But I really enjoyed this one. This was a fun shoot, even though I cussed a few times because it seemed like you'd hear your camera going and all of a sudden you see the wind pick up and you just knew that stack was going to be ruined. So I wait for it to die down and ended up with a couple good ones. But anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Exposures, or you choose different pictures that you take and put all in one, take out the bad ones.
So
What was the question?
if I can pick and choose the exposure, you can't because you'll start seeing the blur because there'll be a gap in those exposures. Helicon Focus does let you can go in and actually mask out. So, which this one isn't one, but I have done that to where it stacks it for you. And let's say there is some movement and it's your only opportunity. You're back home and you only took one focus stack. You can go into an edit portion of Helicon Focus and hit a button where it'll bring up your photos and it'll put them side by side to show your stack and it'll show each individual photo and you can mask and then paint in that non-blurred portion. You have to be real. It's tedious. If they're lower. What's that? Well, this one I don't think I had any problems with this. I don't remember there being any, but I have had some where I've had to go in and try and paint in where it wasn't blurry anymore because there was movement and I've gotten home and I'm like, man, I love this shot, but there's a section where you can obviously see that there was movement in the focus stack. Any other question? This one is an original I took in like 2017. Now, has anyone been to Telluride, Colorado? You guys have been there? So Bridalveil Falls. This is up the two-way portion of Black Bear Pass. I just drove up and went during the day to try and figure out what's my best location to try and shoot. And then went back later that night and shot. I've re-edited this. So my original, the sky wasn't as nice as it is here. I've learned some techniques over the years that I can pull more detail out of my skies. But this is Colorado's tallest waterfall. I don't show all of it in the shot because at that angle you really can't. But if you're familiar with what a lume cube is, I had one of the original square lume cubes. I stopped at the waterfall, turned the thing on, and threw it into the water. And then drove up so that I could get the water illuminated with that longer exposure. And then that building used to be a home for a rich guy. He used to have a cable trend that he would take girls and friends and they go up and drink and gamble during the late 1800s. That's since been gone, but it's now helps provide power to Telluride. There's a power station underneath, so when the water goes through, it helps provide hydroelectricity. So and Telluride, little town, keeps the lights on so people can see it because it's very iconic for the town there. So going up there, I had to try and get my exposures just right so I didn't blow out the lights from the building and lose my waterfall or my foreground. So I finally got it down to where it's ISO 10,000 for 20 seconds with my foreground, and then my track sky was 330 seconds. And of course I illuminated the water or the waterfall with the lume cube, and then just played my exposure for those lights so I didn't blow them out too bad, and ended up with this photo. So any questions on that one?
The bottom of this is a single exposure.
It's two exposures.
Yes. Yeah. So this one's two. My original was just one single exposure, but I've since added the sky just to bring it out more. Because I had taken this back when I liked the foreground and was like, my sky kind of, and so I played with it a little bit and added a sky that matches where the sky would be, but it's just a track sky as opposed to a single exposure sky.
The lume cube in the waterfall, you just mean in the bottom of the water, you set it in the.
Yeah. The waterfall, I think it's like 200 feet, 250 feet.
I'm surprised the lume cube went up that high. That's
Well, on the long exposure, it did a pretty decent job. And I initially went up and shot it, and I couldn't really see
Nobody
the
else
water.
has done that.
What's that?
Nobody else has done it. That's
No,
right.
you don't want to get it till you're done for the night because you're gonna get soaked. That's why I threw it in, because I didn't want to be soaked and drive up and shoot all night long. Because there's so much water and mist coming off of it that you can't. Depending on when time of year you go, you can get soaked. Just get close to that thing. Yeah. So when I originally shot it, there wasn't a lume cube, and you really couldn't see the water. And I wanted the water to be part of the shot because it is an iconic waterfall. So I took the lume, I drove back down and threw the lume cube in the water and then drove back up and reshot it. So, any questions? So this one's in Bisty, which is in New Mexico, Bisty Badlands. It's just south of Farmington, New Mexico. Has anyone been there? Have you been to the cracked eggs?
No, not exactly.
I'm sorry?
I mean, not exactly at this place, but yeah, I've been in Farmington.
Been in part of the area. So there's a section in Bisty. You hike it about 2 miles. They call it the cracked eggs because these rock formations look like alien eggs from the movies Aliens because they're kind of round and they're cracked. And I was on a workshop, so there were other people, and I was walking around, and I just happened to set my camera down, trying to catch some shots before people take the locations, and I noticed that the rocks here reminded me of an ant. I mean, if you see it or not. So there's an ant head with his mandibles, and then the body, and I was like, oh boy, there's my shot right there. I used the rocks right up against the camera to try and minimize the dead space between the rock that looks like an ant and the rocks in front of me. Otherwise, there's a lot of dead space there. And I couldn't get right up on those rocks with the other photographers. So my foreground is a focus stack, 11 single exposures, and then I'm shooting at 18 millimeters. So the mountain, or not, you want to call it mountain, the little cliffside you see back there was real small, and I didn't like it. So I thought, let me try a new technique. I'm going to do a focal blend with my focus stack. So I shot the foreground pretty much up to where you kind of see the rocks or the eggs end. And then I walked up and I shot the hillside or that little cliff at 24 millimeters. And then I blended those two together. So that way it looks more like my eye would have seen it on location. With the 18 millimeters, it just kind of, it seemed like it was just going forever and there wasn't really an end to my photo. And it didn't show any pronounced. So this one's a lot more work than I planned on. So I've got a focus stack and I've got a focal blend. So that last shot brings that hillside or those cliffs in. And then I do a stacked sky on top of that one. So it's a little bit more work than I anticipated in my brain, which I do all the time. I have these great ideas and then I realize that it's gonna be more work than I wanted to do. I really wanted just to edit it and get it on social media as best I can. And it took some time to figure out where my blend lines were gonna be. But anyway, so this was my alien ant shot from Bisty Badlands. Any questions on that one?
Wow. It's not a question.
So this is another technique. This was just my recent trip where I bokeh the sky. So I have a Milky Way in there, but I purposely keep it out of focus so that I can make the focal point of the photo whatever's in the foreground. In this case, I was in a place called Mungo National Park. If there's anybody into history, that's where Mungo Man was found. It's the oldest oldest skeletal remains of a humanoid was found. It's out in the middle of the outback. It's like 45,000-year-old skeleton. But there were a lot of, kangaroos were everywhere, which was surprising, but there were a lot of kangaroo remains, and I just happened to find a skull sitting there. So I thought maybe this would be a great time to kind of focus on the skull and kind of blur out my Milky Way. So it's a stacked exposure, and stacked as in, it's not a focus stack because I only focused on the skull. I stacked the foreground to try and minimize the noise because it was all shot at night. So the 10 exposures were 13 seconds at ISO 6400, and that was to get the foreground, the sand, and the skull. And then, of course, the sky was purposely blurred. So when I focus stacked it, I then had to remask my sky because over those 13-second 10 exposures, your sky moves, so you'll have trailing. So I just chose one and just painted that one back in so that the stars were out of focus, but they weren't moving out of focus. So it's just a technique. You guys are on social media, you see other night photographers do it with flowers or different things where they focus just on the flower and then the stars are out of focus. And this is another one I did in central Utah near Hanksville, where I wanted the flowers and the butte in focus, but I wanted the sky out of focus just to kind of, I really wanted to bring in the flowers and the butte and not really have the eyes go straight to the Milky Way. It's just kind of a way of showcasing. That's Factory Butte, if anyone's been to central Utah or not, that's the Factory Butte out there near, I think it's called Mars Playground or something. I don't remember the exact name of it, but there's an area where NASA works with astronauts, and they've got a makeshift Mars observatory type thing where they go and I guess they leave astronauts in these little domes or whatever for who knows how long, makes them pretend they're in on the surface of Mars. But anyway, so these are the, I don't think they're morning glories, but they bloom in the mornings. So I just got up and shot the flowers at 13 millimeters, ISO 500 for 1 second during the blue hour, and then I have the same night sky, but it's bokeh. So it was on a tracker, but I just made sure it was out of focus, so that it tracked the sky, so there was no movements, but there's purposely out of focus. Any questions? All right. This is another one from Australia. This is another, and this one, it's called Grampians National Park. It's a granite / lava. They call it Hollow Mount because there's little cave systems and just these brain-like rock formations everywhere with little pools. And this was, I wasn't thinking ahead. So the foreground is a focus stacked panorama. So I have a panel head and I shot 62 exposures doing my focus stack. So my first line of focus or panorama was a focus stack, so I shot like 10. And then as I moved to the next, it shot like 8. So the camera was choosing and ended up with 62 exposures for the foreground, all at blue hour at ISO 200. And then those, each individual, I had to put in helium column focus and create one TIFF file from it for that particular portion of the panorama. And then I took all of those individuals from all of the panoramas and then merged them into one panorama. And then the sky was just a panorama that I blended after I put them all together.
So the sky is not a panel.
It is as well.
Oh, okay.
It is
okay.
as well.
Okay.
So the sky's panoed and then the foreground, but I've done panoramas, but I've never done one where I focus stacked to try and get the foreground all in focus. So in my mind, it was a great idea. My computer hated me because the Photoshop file is like 9 gigs, and it was killing my computer. And I didn't think about it at first, but I was shooting the Sony A7R5, and all those megapixels at 62 exposures trying to merge
61
them.
megapixels times 62 exposures.
Yeah.
Just for the foreground.
Yeah, just for,
And then the sky is another 12 times 60
yeah, so it's,
megapixels.
it was running my computer very hard. I didn't think of that when I wanted to take the shot. I was just like, oh, that's a great idea. So I took a lot of them. I probably did 3 or 4 panos just to make sure I had a good set. And I did the same with the sky, because of course the sky was moving. So after I did the foreground, the sky came out and I shot the pano for the sky. So,
Reflection.
yeah. And that was one of the nights that we had no wind. We're up on top of this little mountain and had it to ourselves. And it was just quite an experience to be in Australia with that kind of view. Yes.
So is that 180 degrees? How wide is that?
That's almost 200.
200 degrees.
Yeah, it's
So
close to
it's more
200
than
degrees.
180.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The kangaroos.
No kangaroo. Well, there were a few on the trail heading up, hiking in there, but once we got up on top, I felt pretty safe. And it's winter, so I wasn't worried about snakes. I don't know if I'd be as comfortable up there during the summer. 'Cause, the snakes and spiders would be out. But it was nice and chilly to keep those things away. All right, this one I just finished. I actually thought about using this as one of our competition reflections. Yeah, so this one, it's called Lake Tolondo. I was nervous about any bodies of water because they had these things called saltwater crocs. And I'm small compared to those things, but luckily Lake Tolondo is on the south side. It's in Victoria, so there aren't any saltwater crocs anyway down there, let alone it was winter. So I hiked out into the water a bit so that I could be completely surrounded. You can kind of see edge of the shore to my left there, because my brain was saying if you get up far enough to where you're completely surrounded by water, you should be able to get the reflection of the stars in the water. So this is a panorama, but there's no stacking, there's no tracking. These are all individual single exposures that are just merged as one pano. So it's 28. I did 4 rows of 7 at 24 millimeters, ISO 8000 for 10 seconds. So I would take one shot and I would do 7 across the bottom, then I'd raise the camera up a little, and I'd do 7 more and raise it up, and do 7 more and raise it up, and do 7 more. And then I merged them all in this one image. And this is about 220 degrees. The only mistake is I didn't get the second metropolitan cloud. It's up higher, and as the merge starts to curve on you, I lost the second galaxy up there, so there's only one. That's the only regret on this particular photo.
So 280 seconds. How did you get your sky to merge without? I mean, it's moved in.
Yeah, so I shot the foreground first,
Yeah.
and then just shot the sky.
Oh, the sky's